Imagine planning a vacation to go to Hawaii, being excited about the flight and never leaving ground. This is the story of a group of people who were on board a flight from Los Angeles to Hawaii, and unfortunately, their plane never took off. So it all started when the people boarded the flight, which was scheduled for 9 a.m., and everything was great. But then the pilot came on the intercom and stated that the flight could not leave because there was a leaky faucet in the galley. Mechanics boarded and worked on it for almost an hour, and unfortunately, they were unable to fix it. Okay. Then, the crew were, this is, being retold by someone who was on the plane, obviously. The flight crew were not too happy about the plane, not working because it was in the hangar the entire night. So apparently they expected everything to have been fixed, but it wasn't. So passengers were forced to walk out back to the airport and wait for a new plane. They were told to stay in the boarding area for updates. Oh my goodness. So the group then received promising news. A new plane had been located and the flight was going to depart at 11 a.m., 2 hours after their initial flight, schedule. Although they ended up boarding the plane much later, the group were happy to, have a plane. Sometimes these things just happen and they canceled the entire flight, but they had a new flight for these people, a new plane. And the same crew, which now was a bit happier and joyful to start the journey. The plane pushed back from the gate before noon, but a few minutes a crew member announced that they needed to get back to the gate. This is the flight from hell. Apparently the captain got on the intercom, or the public announcement system, and announced that there was a minor issue with oil pressure in engine number 2. Things I do not want to hear. You guys, who is flying and caring about the mechanics of a plane? That's the last thing I want to hear when I'm going on vacation. But this story continues. He said they were talking to maintenance and just needed a few more minutes to sort things out. Okay, if I were in this plane, I would be like, remove my luggage because I'm not going. 20 minutes later, the captain comes on the intercom and announces that, we have a little update. The aircraft is being observed, so to speak, because the oil on the number 2 engine is trending upwards. I don't know what that means, you guys. So obviously this is not good news. Things only go from worse to worst at this point, when the pilot says that the aircraft requires a fuel system replacement. I would have been already at the ticketing agent looking for another flight, because what does that even mean, and why are you telling us? This is when the pilot was like, they have told us that the plane is good to go, but I'm not really feeling it. I am not going to leave the ground if I'm not completely certain that we have an airworthy aircraft. He goes on to say, I'm going to probably err on the side of caution and I'm refusing the aircraft. Oh my goodness, I don't know if that has ever happened. The pilot then continues on to say that he wasn't sure if there was another aircraft available, and that he hated to do this to the passengers. And he had to make this tough call. I feel more comfortable making this call than flying 6 hours over the water and maybe having an issue. The passengers applauded. The passengers were not angry. They applauded the pilot's decision, you guys. He ended up apologizing for the rough morning, thanked everyone for their patience, and they ended up deplaning. So you guys, what do you guys think about this this pilot's decision? I, for one, would not have been there to hear the entire thing. I would have been gone, because when they start talking about the mechanics of a plane, all those tiny things that go, that by itself means maybe they were trying to hint to them. Maybe they were like, if we start telling them this, and I think it worked. But either way, You guys, that's the last thing you want to hear while going on vacation and while flying over water. That is just a nightmare to imagine. So, and then for a pilot to say they were not feeling it, meaning they have a hunch and maybe they have experience about, you know, things that were almost catastrophic, but they didn't happen, and you know, they didn't want to put people in danger. So as much as this was obviously not good news for people going on vacation and going to the tropics and, you know, missing those lower dances or whatever they're called, this was something that I would have definitely agreed with. And, you know, never thought I would say that I would be happy to have my flight deplaned and cancelled. You guys, what do you think about this? Let me know. Bye.